What I want to look at now is really about the importance, the critical importance of developing strategies for play and strategies that really support and enhance children's access to play opportunities. So, when we talk about play strategies, you mentioned the strategy word, people tend to get a wee bit, oh no, here we go. This is going to be extremely, extremely dull, extremely boring. And it may well be extremely dull and extremely boring, but the reality is unless we have coherent play strategies in place, we will not be able to offer, the level of targeted impact that we're hoping for in terms of supporting children and young people to access critically important play opportunities. So why develop a play strategy? I think, the first thing is it establishes an agreed approach. And, traditionally play strategies have, certainly in Northern Ireland, have tended to be based within council areas, and they've tended to be led by councils. And that's primarily because councils have been the key organisation really delivering play through fixed playgrounds. In other words, play parks with swings, roundabouts, the usual climbing frames and so on, climbing and various climbing objects. So councils have tended to take a lead in terms of developing strategies. And from a council perspective, the strategy is critical because it does establish that agreed approach within council. So in the past, what we've seen is, councils have tended to adopt a bit of a piecemeal approach or a bit of a reactive approach. The strategy allows them to agree that an approach to being more proactive in terms of meeting play needs. Important as well in terms of the strategy can agree an approach to design in line with good practice. And like all arenas, the play world changes on a regular basis. There are new innovations, there are new developments within the field, whether that be within fixed play or non-fixed play. So again, the strategy allows councils to really establish a baseline of where they are in terms of good practice. Strategies are also important for play in that they provide a mechanism for undertaking a regular review of where we are as a society in terms of play. Now in some countries, the likes of Wales and Scotland, they have taken it to probably the level we would like to move towards in terms, certainly Northern Ireland, and I think within Ireland, and that's around a play sufficiency approach. So having that regular review to ensure that children, young people and communities have access to the types of play that are going to support them and to meet their growing needs as they develop through childhood into adulthood. The important thing as well is, and again, traditionally play strategies have tended to focus on fixed play. So they've very much been focused on the development of play parks, with the swings, the roundabouts, the play equipment effectively. But what a play strategy allows you to do is to think a bit more broader. It allows you to move beyond thinking about fixed play and consider how you can perhaps support non-fixed play approaches. So by non-fixed, we're talking about those community-based play initiatives, the types of programs, we've seen some examples of already today, but it allows councils and other stakeholders to put a focus on both fixed and non-fixed, which ultimately provides children with more choice in terms of the play types they are able to access. Critically as well, the play strategy allows for the embedding of a partnership-based approach. And again, councils, certainly in Northern Ireland, whilst they have traditionally taken on a responsibility for delivering play through fixed play parks, we're conscious that there are so many other organisations who have a role and an impact in terms of play, whether that be from our schools, childcare providers, whether it be our sporting clubs, sporting groups, whether it be community organisations. So again, a strategy allows for the development of a partnership-based approach and potentially opening up for example, new resource opportunities, funding opportunities, but also it opens up new areas of development for children in terms of how they access play. So what really are the outcomes you're looking for within the strategy? Well, fundamentally, a play strategy allows for targeted investment in areas of highest play need. And we'll look a wee bit more into that in detail shortly in terms of that. But it does allow for councils or partnerships to really focus and target that investment, which is increasingly coming more challenging to actually get, but it allows you to target that investment where it's really needed. Strategy also allows for the development of a formalised process for the enhancement of play parks with a focus on delivering high play value experiences for all ages and abilities. So again, in the past, perhaps fixed play park development in particular has been very much a budget-led exercise. So in other words, you had a budget for a play park, you would look at what you could potentially fund through that budget, and that basically made up, for what the play park looked like, with very little reference to what the play value was of the material and the equipment you were putting into it. So again, the play strategy allows for that consideration of play value to be right at the core of the process. Play strategies also allow for the development and support of that participative approach. If referencing back to the UN comments where they highlighted the importance of children and young people being involved within, play initiatives and play programs. Again, a strategy allows for the formalization of a participative approach that really helps to ensure that children and young people are in many ways leading the development of play that meets their needs. But it also then allows parents and communities to also have a voice in terms of developing play at a local community level. I've referenced already the play strategy allowing for the development of a broadened portfolio of approaches. So the introduction of those non-fixed or community-based play approaches. What we know is that, whilst fixed play parks with swings, roundabouts, etc., have an important role in terms of play, they're not the be all and end all. And we also know that in many instances, children do prefer the free play or the community-based play, simply because it allows them to take a greater degree of control and charge over their play experience. So again, it allows for that broadened portfolio of approaches. And again, where you have a play strategy, it also allows us to open up a conversation with the broader community in terms of the importance of play, because again, we do still see within communities a lack of tolerance of children at play. Quite often we would hear about police perhaps being called out because children are outdoors playing, not necessarily doing anything antisocial or involved in any activity, but because some of the adults in the community feel that the noise is intruding or whatever, so it allows a conversation to take place around why play is important and how we as a society have a responsibility to really support children to be able to play wherever they are, whether that be at home, whether that be within town centres, urban centres, schools, childcare, etc. So in terms of developing a play strategy, what are the key components within it? Within PlayBoard, we've supported the development of a number of play strategies within Northern Ireland and indeed the Republic of Ireland. And there are a number of, I suppose, what we would see as key core components within them, key elements that really need to be there. Some of these will be fairly, straightforward in terms of what I've already outlined, but that broad-based strategic policy review. So really ensuring that the play strategy at a localized level is embedded within the international, the national, and the local frameworks, and really pays cognizance not only to, for example, council policies or strategies, but it embeds and it brings in education strategies, brings in community strategies, it brings in childcare strategies, it brings in all of those other elements that impact on children and young people's right to play. A critical element of it, again, sort of harking back to that importance of partnership, is providing a basis for strategic stakeholder engagement. So as I say, traditionally in the past, strategies have tended to have been developed primarily by councils, but in developing those, the strategies create very clear connections into other statutory and community providers. So, for example, education authority, schools, local education providers, really having a voice and a say in terms of how the strategy develops. Youth services, particularly important in terms of providing play and recreation opportunities for children as they grow into the teenage years, where play becomes more of recreation, but where the desire to play remains with children. It is important that youth services are there to really provide that connect across as children grow older. The community sector, of course, a critical element within this, is very important in terms of developing a strategy that the community are on board and that the community have a role in terms of developing the strategy, but also in terms of enabling that strategy to be rolled out over time. And I would also mention, a number of other sectors, the disability sector, particularly important in terms of ensuring that play development, play opportunities are developed in an inclusive and an accessible manner. And again, there has been some development over recent years, actually over the last year, at a UK level in terms of looking at how we can enhance accessibility to play. So again, ensuring the disability sector are involved within that. Of course, there are lots of other potential partners and stakeholders within this. We would always articulate the need for police, for the Garda to be involved within that, because again, there can be misunderstandings around play, antisocial behaviour, what constitutes antisocial behaviour. And if we fundamentally bring everything back to the UN Convention, the government of the Republic of Ireland has an obligation there to deliver the right to play. And it's important that that understanding of the right to play and the importance of the right to play is really embedded at all of these different stakeholder levels. And planning, I have a particular interest in the planning side of things, but certainly in terms of, when we look at how we develop our housing estates, how we develop our residential locations, how much thought do we actually give to play, to spaces for play? How much thought do we actually put into the families and the children who are going to live in those communities and how they're going to grow up? Again, just ensuring that the planning system works for children and young people and really supports the delivery of play opportunities at that local level. Of course, communities really are at the core of the process as well. And, fundamentally, we want to ensure that children and young people are really at the driving end of play strategies, that their voices are heard. Ultimately, children and young people know best what they want to play, how they want to play, and what works best for them. So it's critically important that their voices are part of the process and that they have that opportunity to participate, not only in developing the play strategy, but also in as that play strategy rolls out in terms of the operationalization of it. Parents and carers, of course, a critical element within, and community and voluntary sector organisations. So again, just trying to ensure that we have that collective buy-in in terms of play, and really to ensure that those lived experiences of play are very much at the core of the process, and that user reviews of, for example, fixed play parks are really there at the centre of it. Because again, as professionals, we can have a very clear view about how effective a play park is. Children may well and likely will tell us otherwise if we give them the opportunity to voice their opinions. Of course, the barriers I mentioned in the opening part of the session, whilst they're quite generic, there may be very localised issues, localised barriers that are preventing children from accessing play and being able to fulfil their right to play. So again, it's important that children are able to articulate those as part of the process. And of course, to identify their preferred play activities, whether they be fixed, non-fixed, and even just looking at, the types of environments they prefer to play within and the spaces within their communities where they would like better access to. Okay, I just want to focus in on two other areas in a wee bit more detail, again, which are a fundamental part of the strategy development process. The first really is play value assessment. Play value assessment is important because, as I say, in the past we have tended to develop play parks in particular using an economic-based model. So looking at a budget and essentially fitting an equipment based around that budget. Within the play strategy, play value assessment really has to be at the core of it. And the play value assessment is an assessment of a site, whether it be an existing play park or whether it be a proposed design, against a set of criteria. And those criteria you can see on the right of your screen there. So looking at location, accessibility issues, it's looking at the environment, it's looking at the physical, creative and the inclusive play opportunities that are actually available within that site itself. And also giving consideration to the social play dynamics of the site and the location. Again, as part of a strategy, fundamentally what we want the strategy to do is to provide a blueprint or a guidance for investment into the future. So by undertaking play value assessments, we're able to then come up with individual recommendations for play parks and play sites, based around the enhancement of play value and based around ensuring that those sites are as accessible, that they are as broad-based in terms of meeting demographic and age need as they can be. And that process is really undertaken through a number of different channels. There's obviously, all councils and all fixed play park providers carry out regular maintenance assessments, there's photographic evidence, site visits, all of which can help to build up a picture of what the true play value of that location is. And of course, ultimately what the process provides is a mechanism for setting investment priority. So it allows you to then look at, okay, this is where we are in terms of what we have and delivering play. Where do we need to invest? How do we need to invest? And what is the process for doing that? The other bit which is critically important really is undertaking a demographic assessment. So I'm just going to very briefly run through. This is just a couple of maps, and it's really just by way of, I suppose, highlighting what the process looks like. And again, it's really to ensure that when we are targeting investment in play, that investment is targeted at those areas where it is most needed. So this is a process we tend to use within play strategy development. And this is really looking at the location of play parks. So on the map on the screen, you can see the location of play parks. They're all ranked according to their assessed play value, from red, which would be the lowest, play parks, which essentially are play parks which really are not fulfilling any role or function at this stage. Play value is so low, right up to those at the upper end of the scale, which would be the high level district, play parks which are offering a wide abundance of valuable play opportunities. The process of demographic review really looks at the location of households within an area. So within a specified zone, it looks at mapping out where households actually are, with the purpose of looking to see, okay, well, where is the actual coverage in terms of play? So what I've done on the map there, I've in this particular location, you have 2 district play parks. I won't get into the detail, but guidance would suggest there's a 1,000-metre catchment radial associated with district play parks. So we put a radial around it, and it highlights the households covered by those particular play parks. We then do the same with the smaller levels, so neighbourhood and local play parks. Again, each have an assigned radial catchment population, and that again provides us with an overview of household coverage. And when that's combined, it gives us a sense really of where the potential play gaps are. So you can see those households which are falling within a radial, essentially, in theory, are having their play need met. Those households which are falling outside of that really are those locations where we need to look at. We need to dig a bit deeper in terms of the children and young people who live there and the level of access they have to play opportunities. Okay, so what's the actual impact of that in terms of play strategy? So again, this is just using a Northern Ireland context, but since 2015, we've supported play strategy development in 6 council areas in Northern Ireland. We've also then supported development within 3 other councils, so we haven't directly delivered, but we've supported them to develop their own. And we've also worked with Kerry County Council in terms of developing the play strategy in the Republic of Ireland. I just wanted to pick out 2 of the councils really, just by way of giving you a sense of what the impact can be. So Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon currently at the midway point in terms of their play strategy delivery. As a result of the play strategy over the first 4.5 years, they've had 4.5 million of investment, enhancing 36 of their play parks, increasing the level of play value significantly and making those play parks much better in terms of the play experiences children are able to access. And they've appointed a play development officer whose role is really to guide both the capital and the non-capital elements of play within the area. And part of that has resulted in the rollout of community-based non-fixed or free play sessions. So again, essentially seeing that diversification of play delivery. So it's not just about fixed play, it's not just about swings and roundabouts, it's now also about community free play. It's about enabling and supporting communities to deliver their own play sessions within their own area. Another example, Newry, Mourne and Down, again at the midway point, have seen 5 million of investment attracted onto their play strategy, enhancing 47 play parks in their case. They were a very early adopter of free play, so they over the last number of years have worked with ourselves to roll out summer non-fixed free play sessions, and they're very much targeted at more rural locations. So those locations which currently do not have access to fixed play, but as an organisation, PlayBoard are able to then come along and support the community to deliver high value play sessions within the community over the summer months. And Newry, Mourne and Down, again recognising the critical role of play in terms of supporting community cohesion, had a focus piece programme which really placed play at the core of addressing community division within the area. Couple slides just to sort of wrap this up then. So in terms of the Armagh, Banbridge, Craigavon Council, this is just a quick example really of one of the key developments emerging from their play strategy. So this was one of the play parks which would have had a very low play value. You can see the site itself, it was a fairly poor site, very badly. I suppose you could say it was just a very badly abused location, really. It was a site for antisocial behaviour, particularly evenings and weekends. Families really had stopped using it. Children were no longer using the play park itself, and that was down to the antisocial behaviour. You can see the amount of litter there and so on. It just was not an enticing place for playing. The community, this play park was located and actually lobbied to have the play park removed in its entirety. The council, through the strategy, were able to engage with them and implemented an upgrade using good practice guidelines. And that really resulted in a complete transformation of the location itself. So they looked to incorporate mounds, they looked to introduce more playful features, they introduced sand. Again, that was the first time, I think, they had introduced sand as a play material. And as you can see, the use of tires and the focus on using more natural materials in keeping with the rural location. And this is just a few examples from Newry, Morning and Down. And these are just some pictures really from some of the community free play sections. So again, you will see a lot of the approaches highlighted previously, by Angela and by Catherine. But you can see that it was very much about creating playful opportunities, playful experiences for children of a broad range of ages over those summer months, and really allowing them to engage in a much broader range of play types and developmental play activities.